A stay in Manchester ends in the disappearance of a mother from Ireland. Did she make it on the ferry? Or was she intercepted on the way? What happened to Ellen Coss? Welcome to Vanished Voices UK, your new favourite spot for curious missing persons cases, true crime stories, and in-depth investigations. Vanished on the way home to Ireland. The mysterious disappearance of Ellen Coss. In early November 1999, 50-year-old Ellen Coss left Manchester Piccadilly station on a train bound for Holyhead. She was expected to take a ferry to Dublin, but she never arrived. 2 countries, decades of searching, and lots of questions remain. This is the story of Ellen Coss. Ellen Coss, born Ellen Brown on the 30th of April 1949, is an Irish woman who has been missing since the 3rd of November 1999. Her official Garda missing persons entry confirms her date of birth and lists her as a resident of Ballyfermot in Dublin. At the time she went missing, she was 50 years old and she would now be 76. Missing people state Ellen's height at approximately 5 foot 3 inches, with brown hair going grey, often tied back in photographs used in posters. In online groups and discussion threads, Ellen has been described as softly spoken, sociable and friendly, and that she had a love of traditional Irish music and walking. Some of her previous jobs include hairdressing and house cleaning. Ellen is also described as a non-smoker and non-drinker. Ellen was the mother of one adult son, Peter, who lived in London at the time of her disappearance. She had been visiting family in Greater Manchester, staying with her sister Bertha Lee in the Langley Middleton area, and was travelling back to Ireland when she was last seen. Ellen also has 2 brothers named Thomas and James, who became instrumental in the search for answers. Family interviews published in national and regional media reports describe Ellen as having been distressed after the death of her mother in early 1999. Those interviews, including pieces in the Irish Examiner and the Irish Independent, in which family members speak directly, say her brothers and son never stopped searching for her in the years that followed. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Ellen Coss was visiting family in Greater Manchester and was living there temporarily, according to her son. She had been staying with her sister Bertha in the Langley Middleton area, as discussed previously. On the 2nd of November, Ellen had a phone conversation with her son Peter, in which they discussed her struggles after the death of her mother, and Peter explained to her that her family were worried about her. Ellen acknowledged that she needed to do something about it. Later, Ellen ended the call after saying "I love you." On the 3rd of November, Ellen left Manchester Piccadilly station to board a train bound for Holyhead, the rail link that connects with ferries to Dublin. Multiple official and press sources identify this moment as the last confirmed time and place where she was seen. Her sister has told journalists that she waved Ellen goodbye at Piccadilly as Ellen began the journey home. Son Peter stated, "Mum didn't like to fly when she was going abroad, so she would get the boat and train. It was a journey she had done for years." Ellen was expected to travel from Holyhead to Dublin by ferry, a route that she had used previously, but she never arrived in Ireland and no confirmed trace of her has been reported since she left Piccadilly. That absence of any confirmed arrival or further verified sightings is the central fact in the public records and police summaries of the case. A day later, Peter received a phone call from his uncle telling him that Ellen hadn't returned home as expected. Peter said, She did sometimes go places on her own, so not being around for a day or two was not incredibly unusual. But then it got to another day, and nobody had heard from her, and she didn't have a mobile phone. Peter said he called the police, but they were advised to wait until the following day. He said, "We started getting concerned and started liaising with the police in Manchester and Ireland." Peter stated in the Manchester Evening News that Ellen's family did wonder if she got on the boat at all. In the months that followed, there were a number of reported sightings and leads mentioned in press coverage, including leads in Dublin and elsewhere, but none produced confirmation. Continued family searches, reported sightings and police inquiries followed, but no confirmed evidence of where she went after Piccadilly has been published. As mentioned previously, Ellen Coss was last seen leaving Manchester Piccadilly on the 3rd of November 1999 en route to Holyhead. Greater Manchester Police opened inquiries and requested assistance from the Garda in Ireland. The Garda public missing person page explicitly records that Manchester Police sought Garda assistance in trying to establish Ellen's whereabouts. Once the family reported her missing after she failed to arrive in Dublin, cross-jurisdiction communication was a key early step. Public records show the case being treated as a missing person inquiry, spanning police forces in England, Wales and Ireland. In the months after her disappearance, police and family followed a number of reported sightings and leads. Press accounts and later family interviews record that relatives made repeated journeys, including searches in Holyhead and Dublin, and that police in Wales and England carried out local inquiries. Her son Peter has stated in reports that the family had asked the police to look at CCTV footage, and for some reason they couldn't get hold of it, or that the cameras were not working at that time. So whether it wasn't available or there was no attempt to retrieve it, there has been no CCTV footage to investigate or use in appeals. On one occasion, family members were asked by police to view a recovered body and provided DNA samples to assist formal identification. Irish press reporting, which records the family's account, says that a body found at Bournemouth roughly a year after Ellen disappeared was examined and that DNA testing subsequently excluded it as Ellen's. Public sources document that Greater Manchester Police had conducted local inquiries in 1999 to 2000 and that Garda were engaged. However, official police statements giving operational detail, for example the precise lines of inquiry pursued by the Greater Manchester Police or the Garda, whether the station or ferry CCTV was recovered, or whether formal suspect lines were progressed, are not available in the public domain. Missing people and other missing person registries continue to list Ellen as missing and to encourage anyone with information, no matter how small, to contact police or the charity. To date, there are no publicly available statements from Greater Manchester Police or the Garda announcing any arrests in relation to her disappearance. Over the years, Ellen's relatives, particularly her son and brothers, have made repeated public appeals for information and publicly described the emotional toll of the continuing search. Her brother Thomas is reported to have spent long periods searching Holyhead and Dublin, and at one point slept rough among Dublin's homeless in the hope of tracing a possible sighting. In 2021, the family pursued a court route to support efforts to find Ellen. Reporting of that court hearing states a circuit civil court judge directed an advertisement to be placed in a leading Manchester newspaper to ask anyone with information to contact the family. Peter, Ellen's son, has repeatedly appealed to anyone who knows where she might be to come forward. As he told a feature piece, "If she's still alive, we would just be relieved that she's okay." That direct plea has been used in anniversary and renewed appeals to underscore the family's desire for any information, however small. The family's appeals have been persistent and public. Regular press appeals, court action, searches by relatives, and the ongoing charity listings are the principal ways that they have asked the public for help. Sadly, Ellen's sister Bertha passed away a few years ago, without finding out what happened to Ellen. This section sets out the main theories that have been discussed publicly about what may have happened to Ellen Coss. None of these theories have been proven. They are presented as possibilities that have been raised by Ellen's family, by journalists, and by public discussions on social media and internet forums. The first theory looks at whether Ellen may have chosen to start a new life, became homeless and lost contact with family, or possibly even harmed herself. These possibilities have appeared in press coverage and discussions because the family has spoken about Ellen's low mood after her bereavement. So, what could support this theory? Family interviews published in the Irish press describe Ellen as having experienced depression following her mother's death. These issues are well documented and could have led her to breaking point. Relatives also reported searching homeless communities in Dublin after reported sightings. These personal circumstances can make disappearance without any trace more plausible. Ellen's brother even went to the extent of sleeping rough to try and find a trace of his sister. But what weakens this theory? Ellen had contact with her family shortly before travelling. Leaving without a trace for more than 2 decades is possible, but less common for someone with regular family ties, and no confirmed long-term sighting has emerged. While depressed after the death of her mother, this is quite usual, and there was no indication that she had shown any intention to take her own life. This theory is a possibility given the reported bereavement and family accounts, and it is often considered alongside other theories, but there is no direct public evidence that she intentionally vanished, harmed herself, or survived long-term away from family. The next theory asks whether Ellen may have boarded the Holyhead to Dublin ferry and suffered an accident, for example falling from the vessel or being swept into the sea, and her body was not identified or recovered. This theory has been discussed in comment threads and occasionally raised in media features as a possible explanation. The obvious fact that supports this theory is that her intended route included a ferry crossing. If she did board the ferry, an accident at sea could explain the absence of arrival and lack of any trace. Some issues with proving this theory may be that there is no public record of a ferry manifest. Crew report to suggest she made it aboard. No witnesses have come forward seeing her on the ferry, and no public record is available as to whether there were CCTV cameras on board that may have captured her on the ferry, and why any of that footage may have been unavailable. This type of accident is possible in theory because of the ferry route, but again, there is no public forensic evidence to support it, and no remains have ever been located proving that she fell into the sea. The next theory is that Ellen was the victim of foul play after leaving Manchester Piccadilly, most likely between Manchester and Holyhead, or at Holyhead itself, and therefore never reached Dublin. Some of the facts that support this theory are: the last confirmed sighting is Ellen boarding a train at Manchester Piccadilly on the 3rd of November. There is no public record of her arriving in Ireland or being seen on the ferry. That gap in confirmed movements is central to the family's concern. Family members, including Tom Brown, her brother, have repeatedly told journalists that they searched Holyhead and believe she did not get any further. Those family statements have been widely reported. Her brother Tom also stated that there is no way she would have willingly gone missing and left her son. However, there are certain facts and issues that weaken or complicate this theory. There is no public record of an identified suspect, a confirmed violent incident on the train or ferry route, or forensic evidence published that proves an assault occurred, and there are questions as to whether any attempt to speak to witnesses has been carried out. The bottom line is that it is a plausible and widely held theory among relatives and members of the public, but in the public record it remains unproven due to lack of confirmed forensic or witness evidence. Continuing with the foul play theory, Ellen may have encountered an opportunistic attacker while travelling, or her disappearance could be linked to a mobile offender active in the area or along transport routes. This idea is common in public discussions and true crime forums that compare unsolved disappearances. Facts that may support this theory include travel on public transport and through busy interchanges such as public transport stations and ferry ports can expose travellers to opportunistic risk. The absence of any later confirmed sightings is consistent with a sudden criminal event, and the family's belief that she did not get to her destination adds to this concern. Certain issues that could weaken this theory are that no publicly reported forensic witness or police statement has linked Ellen's disappearance to any named offender. Conversations in forums speculate about links to other cases, but that remains speculative without investigative confirmation. Opportunistic criminality is a plausible explanation for an otherwise unexplained disappearance on a public route, but it, like any theory, remains unproven. Lastly, but still within the category of foul play, some internet threads and social media posts sometimes raise human trafficking or organised exploitation as a possible explanation for unexplained disappearances. Something that may support this theory is that long-distance travel and movement through ports can be exploited by traffickers. Online commentators sometimes point to the ferry route as a vulnerability. However, there is no public evidence produced by police or reliable reporting that links Ellen's disappearance to organised trafficking, and many internet-driven trafficking theories are unverified or based on conjecture. Established investigative authorities and reputable journalists have not published evidence connecting this case to trafficking networks. So, while trafficking is often raised on forums, it is an unsubstantiated theory in this case as far as the public record shows, and this theory seems fairly unlikely given her profile. Sadly for her family, none of these theories have been proved or disproved in public, which is why police, charities, and the family continue to ask anyone with reliable information about Ellen's movements to come forward. The investigation into Ellen's case contains a number of gaps. Next, we ask some of the unanswered questions and look at why each could help investigators or the family if resolved. Was Ellen captured on station or train CCTV after she left Piccadilly? And if so, what does it show? Surely, even in 1999, there would have been some cameras in and around Piccadilly and at the ferry crossing. Public reporting and official summaries confirm Piccadilly as the last confirmed place she was seen, but operational details about CCTV checks have not been published. Only family statements that state the police couldn't get any footage for some reason. Establishing whether she was ever seen on camera after Piccadilly would narrow down where she might have travelled. Is there any clear passenger record or ferry manifest showing whether Ellen boarded the Holyhead to Dublin ferry on the day that she disappeared? And if not, why not? Ellen's planned route included the Holyhead ferry. If she did not board the ferry, then the focus would be on inquiries on the railroad segment between Manchester and Holyhead. Public sources state that she intended to use that route, but do not publish ferry manifest information. Confirming or ruling out the ferry crossing seems central to the investigation. If the ferry doesn't have a manifest that they check as people board, how would they know if people were still missing in the event of an accident? Were there any credible eyewitnesses on the train at Holyhead Station or at the ferry terminal who saw Ellen or a person matching her description, and were their statements recorded? Family accounts say her sister waved Ellen goodbye at Piccadilly. Beyond that, press reports record many unconfirmed sightings over the years. Public reporting does not provide a list of witness statements or their outcomes. Witness testimony could identify the last known direction she was moving in. Surely, again, Greater Manchester Police or rail operators could have recovered CCTV from stations between Piccadilly and her destination for that date. So, if no CCTV was retained by the police, again the question is why? Public summaries state that Manchester Police followed leads, but detailed operational disclosures such as CCTV searches have not been made public. If intermediate station footage exists, it could place Ellen at a particular location between Manchester and Holyhead. Have potential phone, bank or other transaction records been checked for activity since 1999? Again, the public record does not include operational detail about whether financial or telecom checks were exhaustive. Transactional records can confirm whether someone reached a destination or used funds after the disappearance. However, Peter has stated that Ellen did not have a mobile phone, so frustratingly, that is not an avenue that could have been investigated. Were there any linked investigations, reports of similar disappearances, or suspicious incidents between the Manchester-Holyhead-Dublin corridor at the same time that might provide leads? Public discussion and forum speculation sometimes compare unsolved cases, but reputable press and police reporting have not published links to named incidents. A systematic comparison of other incidents at around the same time might reveal patterns or witnesses who have information that they did not realise was significant at the time. Is there archived media such as taxi logs or private CCTV from shops or car parks, for example, from the route that could now be rechecked or publicised to jog witnesses' memories? Over 2 decades, small details can be forgotten. The family and the 2021 court action used publicity to generate leads. A targeted archival check or renewed public appeal using specific images might produce memories from people who did not connect their recollection at the time. Did Ellen's case slip through the cracks of a cross-border investigation, or could the investigation just not have been very thorough? With 2 police forces involved, Greater Manchester Police and the Garda, but no confirmed evidence of whether Ellen actually arrived in Ireland, the investigation straddled 2 jurisdictions from the outset. If Ellen vanished before boarding the ferry, or upon arrival in Ireland, responsibility for the primary investigation could have been unclear, potentially leading each force to assume the other was pursuing key leads. The lack of definitive sightings in either country raises the question, did the absence of jurisdictional certainty hinder the urgency and coordination of the search? Peter, Ellen's son, also later stated that the police in Dublin wanted to close the case early, that he didn't feel like it was a priority, and that the family felt like they had to push the police to make an appeal. These are all potential indications that the investigation was not thorough and that the police may have not been taking Ellen's disappearance seriously. These are just some of the core questions that could be answered with a renewed investigation and/or more exposure to this case. Each one points to a concrete line of inquiry that could narrow the timeline or eliminate possibilities.
As I said, I realise now that I should have spoken out about the mistreatment I endured and the lack of effort to find my sister by the people whose job it was to do so. The state and the Garda investigating the case. I am asking that my sister is not forgotten and that mistakes made in her case will not be repeated and they can save other families undue hardship. As I said, it doesn't get any easier every day, every year. Ellen, I love you, it goes without saying that, but what's breaking me, my heart is broken, but it will not be broken by the state or the Garda who failed to do their job investigating your case when you went missing.
If you have any information that could help locate Ellen Coss, no matter how small or insignificant it may be, please come forward. For information connected to events in Greater Manchester, contact Greater Manchester Police on 101 or use their online reporting page to file information about Ellen or any missing person. If you prefer to report anonymously, you can still contact police or use Crime Stoppers and call 0800 555 111. If your information relates to Ireland or you are in Ireland and wish to speak to the Garda, call your local Garda station 112 or the confidential number 1800 666 111. You can also contact missing people. Their free confidential helpline is 116 000. They can take sighting reports, offer advice, and pass information to police if appropriate. When calling missing people, quote their public case reference for Ellen 99-001440 if prompted. If you're worried about anonymity, call one of the available confidential numbers. The most important thing is that information reaches investigators or the charity so it can be checked and followed up. Decades of not knowing the truth is its own kind of violence. It steals peace from a family, and it steals the truth from a life. Ellen's loved ones have lived with that absence every day. We owe them more than silence. If you hold even the smallest memory, the faintest detail, speak up for Ellen, for her family, for the justice they deserve. Answers matter. As always, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, every missing person deserves to be found. Like, comment and subscribe to see more new and cold missing persons cases from the UK.